What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, Nintendo did a Nintendo and announced a very random update for a game that I was certainly not expecting, but bringing it up to the Switch 2 level, and we'll go over what that exactly is here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony announcing a very odd strategic partnership that caught everyone off guard, because once again, it has people wondering what exactly they're interested in when it comes to hardware in their home entertainment business. And we also have CD Projekt Red, who is back in the news, this time though for a DMCA takedown. However, seems like the internet's actually siding with the big company this time. All of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Doug Bowser, who seems to have found a new job already. Now, he left Nintendo of America, the president of Nintendo of America, at the end of 2025. And now, just a few weeks into 2026, we can see this over on Nintendo Life. Former Nintendo of America president Doug Bowser joins Hasbro's board of directors. All right, then. I mean, look, he responded to somebody on X when they were asking him to get Baldur's Gate 3 onto this. Hey, go there and let him know Baldur's Gate 3 has to be on the Switch too. But he just kind of mentioned, I'm semi-retired right now, so I don't know what this position entails compared to being the president and COO of Nintendo of America. Maybe this is more hands-off, as we did see Reggie, when he left Nintendo, also did some other things here and there with boards of directors and stuff, so maybe that's the case. Some are wondering, did he just get fired? Who knows? I honestly, at this point, we're still trying to figure out if Jim Ryan got fired from Sony. So that maybe a situation of, I'll go ahead and kind of see myself out. You don't have to fire me, I'll just leave. But either way, he's found a new place, I guess new home, here with Hasbro on the board of directors. Also, we do have Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade out on the Switch 2 and the Xbox this week, and we got to look at the physical edition for the Switch 2. Yes, it's a game keycard. This is one of those outlier situations for people when it comes to game keycards, because we know the game just, it can't fit on a Switch 2 cartridge. It is much, much more than the 64 gigabyte maximum that we have right now when it comes to a cartridge. But here's the thing with Square Enix, kind of feels like they're trying to meet gamers halfway with this one. So for one, it's $40. And then for two, you can see it actually comes with some stuff. So it comes with a Magic the Gathering Final Fantasy crossover booster pack. Not that I'm really into Magic the Gathering, but it's a nice to have thing. And who knows, maybe you open it up, you pull a cool card, and you just kind of put the card up somewhere. And then you also have reverse cover art. Again, this being $40, it does soften the blow, I feel like, for a game key card release that, again, can't fit on a 64 gigabyte cartridge anyway, with the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade coming in north of 90 gigabytes on the Switch 2. Still, if you have not played this game, I fully recommend it, especially at $40. That's a good deal, as well as with Intergrade. And of course, it being a portable release, I mean, we have the Steam Deck version, but this one, I think we're going to have comparisons, and people are going to go, oh, wow, okay, the Switch 2 version does compare very favorably, especially in image quality and visual style compared to the Steam Deck. But you know what? This is one of those cases where the game key card not looking so bad on the physical side, just because of the way they presented it and the price they're releasing it. Oh, and there's actually a pretty cool update coming to Hitman World of Assassination. This we can see over on their website. And this is the cross progression guide, because on February 3rd, they will have cross progression across the board for Hitman World of Assassination. So any of the different platforms that it's released on, you would use the IOI account that they have. And with that, you can carry progress across the board for multiple devices. They go over all the things that would transfer. That includes experience, player level, challenges, location mastery, achievements, trophies, and more. So if you have it on the Switch 2, and then you also have it on, say, the PS5 or the Xbox or something, you can just transfer your save around. And this is something I really, really like to see. I thought it was really cool with something like Star Wars Outlaws, and even with Assassin's Creed Shadows, as Ubisoft has been doing this with the Switch 2 and then other platforms, just to be able to transfer it around. It's very, very convenient, especially if the Switch 2 is your portable system, and then maybe you have a PC or an Xbox or PlayStation at home for your whole theater setup. So check out that February 3rd. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo and them running straight out of left field with the Switch 2 update for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. And I was certainly not expecting to hear that yesterday on just a random Tuesday, but here we are. And I guess now that makes Donkey Kong Country Returns HD Ultra HD, because yes, there is an entire Switch 2 enhancement here. And before we get into the update, it is indeed free. Now, the game itself, and we can see some of the trailer here. This is the new trailer Nintendo released for the enhancements. The game itself came out January 16th, 2025, so we're just over a year from this game's release, and maybe that's why it's kind of a recent release, and Nintendo's thinking, oh, we can, yes, spruce up this Wii game again. I mean, I know there was other work done to it when it went to the Switch, but they're thinking, hey, you know what? We can do some more work here and, for example, move it up to the 1080p screen on the Switch 2. Not just Switch 2 enhancements, though, which we'll go over in full here in a second, because there is new content. Dixie Kong, now playable. Single player or co-op. There's also a turbo attack mode, Brazilian Portuguese, that's been added in as a language option here for it. Really good news. And then for the Switch 2, you do have game share, which that is a really good function for a game like this that has that sort of co-op functionality, to be able to play two people with one cartridge using a Switch 1 or a Switch 2 is definitely welcome. Again, just more features and additions for the game. Why not? Increased resolution, of course, and higher resolution graphics. So they did a whole zoom in, and every time they do this, it's funny because they just go, look how bad the Switch 1 version looks. But don't worry, the Switch 2 is here to clean it up. And look, it does look better, but they are zooming in pretty far on that. However, if you move this up to the Switch 2, as I mentioned before, you are going to be stretching that image out across a larger screen, and a screen that is expecting at least a 1080p base resolution. Yes, there may be upscaling or other things being done, but it is expecting that resolution. So text being a big thing, like UI elements, those can definitely look stretched and blurred even. But, I mean, it's a smooth-looking game outright. It runs well, and it does have faster load times here with the Switch 2. Another comparison they did that just makes the Switch 1 look just terrible. But, again, it's free. It's available now. And, hey, you know what? I do like these free updates. It's going to be hard for people to complain about free, you know, an update for a game they may have, or one they've been thinking about but wanted to see if Nintendo would go back and do a Switch 2 enhancement for it. It's more the ones that I feel like get more pushback is when you buy the base game and then the DLC enhancement and all of a sudden it's $80. Here though, okay, $60 for the game, and it's Switch 2 ready after the update out of the box, and you have Dixie Kong and Game Share. So again, not a bad update, just kind of random. I don't mind Nintendo doing random updates like these. Animal Crossing, while it was announced previously, that did drop last week, and now here comes Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, now Ultra HD this week. Maybe Nintendo can kind of make this a theme where a few of these free updates drop each month, and they can work to bring up the back catalog to what you would expect a Switch 2 to be able to do with these games. Like, for example, Xenoblade Chronicles X. Maybe we can get that to 60 FPS. Come on, Nintendo. We've seen there was a whole story about that with the code and how it seems like there's a 60 FPS option that's just not turned on right now. I don't even mind if the resolution stays where it is. If that game can just run at 60, it would just be even significantly better experience, I would say, on something like the Switch 2. But there you have it. Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, now Ultra HD, and available through a free update. Next up, let's talk about Sony and TCL. They've announced their plans for a strategic partnership going into 2026, and this left some people scratching their heads because it kind of sounds like it'll take the TV manufacturing away from Sony, along with branding that would then be given to TCL. So this is the press release that they put out yesterday, where they say specifically that two companies, TCL and Sony, have signed a memorandum of understanding to confirm their intentions to establish a joint venture that will assume Sony's home entertainment business, with TCL holding 51% and Sony holding 49% of its shares. The joint venture will operate globally, handling the full process from product development and design to manufacturing, sales, logistics, and customer service for products, including televisions and home audio equipment. Sony and TCL will proceed with discussions toward executing definitive binding agreements by the end of March 2026. So looking a couple of months down the line, they should have all this completely finished up. The new company, though, as they go on to explain how exactly this is going to work, say they plan to advance its business by leveraging Sony's high-quality picture and audio technology cultivated over the years, brand value, and operational expertise, including supply chain management, while utilizing TCL's advanced display technology, global scale advantages, industrial footprint, end-to-end cost efficiency, and vertical supply chain strength. The new company's products are expected to carry the globally recognized Sony name and Bravia name, aiming to create new customer value through these branded products such as TVs and home audio equipment. So, for the longest time, you'd see Sony, Bravia, and you would expect a high-quality experience, a high-quality product for your home theater with a nice TV or sound bar or what have you. So, with Sony out there on the more quality side, but also more expensive side, TCL has kind of always been viewed, at least from my perspective, as more budget-oriented. And for a while there, it was one that gamers would look at and go, hey, that's what you want. But I think it's also now kind of moved over to LG, especially with their C-Series and their OLED displays. Like, those work really, really well, as they have things like G-Sync built into it. But those more so recognize your game console and the high refresh rates and all that stuff, and really nice picture, reasonable pricing. But here, Sony and TCL teaming up, I am curious how this one is going to end up, specifically when their first real products start rolling out from the factories, because it would have the Bravia tag on it, but then TCL, it seems like, would be handling the bulk of the manufacturing, whereas Sony would have a lot of the R&D stuff that they'd be working out. So I'm curious if this is going to result in cheaper TVs with the Bravia name, or are they going to try to tackle more advanced technology that could be more expensive for the high-end models, but because you have both of them working together, is something that's more reasonable for them to actually go after here. So that's not really sure what to expect from this. Just interesting that Sony has been slowly kind of working their way out of things like laptops or phones or TVs, and it seems like they're focusing more and more on a lot of the technologies behind the scenes, or even just kind of the software side, or for PlayStation, yes, the hardware, but certainly a lot of the storefronts and ways for them to collect money outside of just creating hardware and then selling it. But we'll see how this goes as they are working to finish this up by the end of March 2026. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and Game Pass games. These will be Wave 2 for the month of January, and we can see over on news.xbox.com, available right now, they have Resident Evil Village, that's cloud, console, and PC, and then Mio, Memories, and Orbit, cloud, handheld, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. Starting today, Death Stranding Director's Cut, cloud, handheld, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. This one's particularly interesting because it did go to Game Pass PC, I feel like a couple of years ago now, and then it was pulled from the service after a time, but now it's back and back on console. So that's something to keep an eye on there. But I mean, if you've never played Death Stranding, very different kind of game, and I guess there's less risk if you're a Game Pass subscriber. Obviously, you could just download it and try it out. If nothing else, maybe you have a nice TV or something, you want to see a game that looks incredible. Even the first one here, yes, especially with the landscapes and the Desm engine, that's one definitely to fire up and just check out the scenery. You also have Roadcraft, that's PC, and Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, cloud, PC, Xbox Series X and S. Big time recommendation on that one. Awesome kind of old school, difficult, side-scrolling action game. Yeah, very, very good game. And then moving up to January 27th, The Talos Principle 2, PC and Xbox Series X and S. January 28th, we have Anno Mutationum. All right, then. And then we also have Drop Duchy, that's cloud, PC, and console. Moving to January 29th, My Sims Cozy Bundle, that's on PC. And we have Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. And moving to February 2nd, Indica, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. And then February 3rd, Final Fantasy II, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. So overall, not a bad way to close out the month of January. Recommendations would clearly be Resident Evil Village and Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, but just in case you're curious, I think it is worth a download for Death Stranding and just trying it out. I mean, you'll see what Kojima's been up to this whole time, and it is certainly a weird one. But there we go. That's Game Pass Wave 2 for the month of January. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077 and a certain mod that caught the attention for CD Projekt to where they did issue a DMCA takedown around it. And usually when we hear a big company going after creator with a DMCA, for the most part, 90% of the time, a lot of people online will side with the creator. Here, though, it doesn't seem to be as clear-cut. All right, we can see this, though. This is over on gamesindustry.biz, saying CD Projekt has issued a DMCA takedown against a modder known as Luke Ross for their VR version of Cyberpunk 2077, which sounds absolutely trippy, by the way. A VR version of Cyberpunk 2077 sounds interesting and terrifying all at the same time. And they say, in a post on their Patreon, Luke Ross said there had been an ongoing legal exchange leading to a DMCA notice being issued and the subsequent takedown of the VR mod. But there is a response from CD Projekt Red, their VP of Business Development, Jan Rosner, who confirmed it had issued a DMCA strike due to the mod only being made available as a paid product. Quote, this directly violates our fan content guidelines. We never allow monetization of our IP without direct permission and or agreement in place. So at this time, it seems like the creator, Luke Ross, is disagreeing with this, and there's kind of not even really at a standstill as they just issued the DMCA takedown and they took it down. So for me, if I made this mod and I just kind of want it out there, I'd probably just release it at that time. But here's the thing, CD Projekt Red, the negotiations that went on was, hey, you can release this mod and then have just optional donations. Like, you might go through, there's an open source piece of software that you use in a project or something, and little links like, hey, buy me a cup of coffee. It's like $3 or $4 or something. Just throw it in the coffee or Ko-Fi tip jar. It's like, yeah, that makes sense to me. That's fine. If I get use out of this, sure. Throw a couple bucks in there for a cup of coffee. Here, though, it was just paywall. You have to spend money to then get to this mod. CD Projekt wanted it to be optional. They don't want it to be, and then here comes the DMCA takedown, which I'm sure people are still curious. Why does it matter? Well, if you're looking at this from CD Projekt Red's perspective, what precedent does this set for other people to come in and essentially then just kind of sell products based on your product? Because it is a mod that fully relies on their game. And they don't seem to have a problem with that if it's not technically being paywalled and sold as a product, as opposed to just optional donations. And mods are already in that gray area, and we've seen it time and time again. Even free mods, they just get ripped down because likenesses for actors, or the company just doesn't like it. Here though, it's I think a little more straightforward as to why CD Projekt Red doesn't just want someone selling something next to it do people start contacting them if the mod is messing up? Hey, I paid money for this. This is CD Projekt Red's game. I'm going to ask them why this VR mod isn't working. You might look at that and go, that doesn't make any sense. But when you think about just the mainstream who maybe stumbles across this mod and buys it and uses it, it wouldn't shock me. So CD Projekt Red probably wants to avoid all of that. And if you do decide to make a mod, hey, the donation, the Ko-Fi link, all that's fine. Just don't try to sell it basically like on a storefront. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. And that is Game of the Year Madness, Day 26. Hollow Knight Silksong just ran right over Ghost of Yotei. Hey, Ghost of Yotei had a nice little run there, but the power of Hollow Knight Silksong, and we're going to see it tested here pretty soon. All right, as like I said, I put up the updated brackets. We only have so many more rounds to go through here, and we're gonna see the final four really test a few of these games. But Hollow Knight Silksong rolling along as usual into the final four. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Ralph, who says, Mario Kart 7 Deluxe. What timeline is this? Yeah, it's from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's fun. It's funny, I was going through the comments, and I'm like, I really said Mario Kart 7. Well, the backstory even to that part is that one of the kids really is interested in this 3DS now, okay? So he's asking me about all these different games. Like, oh, well, yeah, Mario Kart's on there, of course. You can check Mario 3D Land. They really enjoy Mario. And so we're talking about Mario Kart 7 on there, and I've been showing the game to him, and he's been playing it a lot and talking about it. So because of that, and that was earlier in the day yesterday, and then the day before that, and the weekends, it's been a lot of Mario Kart 7 around the house. So I'm thinking maybe I was going through, not even like noticing it all. Mario Kart 7 Deluxe, it's just kind of on the mind. So yeah, I guess technically right now, even with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe available and Mario Kart World, been playing Mario Kart 7. So go figure. Which, by the way, I don't know if that's good or bad for the 3DS market. Good if you have one, that the younger generation does appear to be, I'd say even fascinated with the idea of the 3DS, because no system still has been able to continue that kind of play style with two screens and a handheld that folds shut and has some very, very unique titles. So I think there's going to be a lot of gamers coming up now that want a 3DS. Again, that sounds weird, but hey, that was That was a unique moment in time with the DS, the DS Lite, the 3DS. It was good stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about the past, present, or the future of gaming. I had an entire sit-down conversation for about an hour with Colin Moriarty from Last Stand, and I'll leave that right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.